You are now listening to Effin Radio.
And welcome to F&B Radio. My name is Lindsay Collins and I am your host. By the time you're hearing this, it's Friday, December 30th. Maybe you're hearing it after. Either way, hopefully we're into the new year. Because boy, am I sick of that old year. Last year had a lot of high points, and I won't reflect on all of them, or any of them really, because, I share a lot throughout the year, but on this podcast, no less. But I cannot help feeling just done with that. Done with 2022. All of it. New Year. Somebody asked me what I was doing for New Year's. I was like, nothing. I never celebrate New Year's. I get amped for January, but I don't know. By the time New Year's rolls around, I'm just beyond over it. I don't want to see anyone else I know. I don't want to do anything really. I don't want to dress up. I just want to stay at home. And I think that comes from a long time of, waiting tables on New Year's or working in restaurants on New Year's, where it's just like, you kind of facilitate this party for other people, but you don't really get to enjoy it unless you choose to like I did, get drunk while you're working. You can do that. I've been having crazy restaurant nightmares with Gordon Ramsay. No, not with Gordon Ramsay, but I've been having crazy restaurant nightmares where I'm fighting with everyone I used to know. Just the most catastrophic fallouts with everyone I know in my dreams. I can't tell if that means that's what I hope will happen. These are the dreams of my heart. These, follow your dreams. When people say that, do they mean my dreams? Because my dreams are fucked up. So I try not to follow my literal dreams, the ones I have at night. I try to follow my lucid dreams, my daydreams, because I'm you just don't want to be in this head. In this head, I'm just burning it all to the ground every night in my dreams. I go back to restaurants I used to work in and I just really have it out with people. It's been happening all week. And that's something, I don't know if I've talked about it on the show before, but I have constant nightmares and I manage them in different ways, at night, not all the time, not every second that I'm awake, but, I feel like I have talked about this on here because I feel like people suggested stuff and I was like, you don't understand. Magnesium or gummies, CBD gummies, those kinds of things do help. Mindfulness before bed, meditating before bed, that kind of stuff does help. But since I was a kid, I used to have these extremely just violent, scary night terrors since I was about 5 or 6 years old. And they always correlate with exactly what's happening in my life. They're never well, that's not true. They do vary, but a lot of times it's a reoccurring dream. And a lot of times it's based in places that I currently am in my life. So it mirrors what's happening in real time. So it's just kind of my imagination turns everything into a horror film and then just makes me view my own worst fears, or anxieties or whatever it is. I don't know, because I feel like I'm a person in life that manages anxiety well. I don't have a lot of social anxiety. It will creep up every now and then. The older I get, the less I give a fuck about being around large groups of people. And the pandemic definitely it sort of accentuated that natural desire that I have to just kind of oof, don't bother me. And ironically, I'm a person that people want to bother all the time. I have that disease where people want to tell me their life story, like strangers. And I've seen this in other people, and I've had other people who are this type of person or energy. They have expressed similar things, and I'm always like, oh God, I'm so glad it's not just me, or that I'm not insane, because a lot of times I think I'm making it up and I'm some sort of textbook narcissist as I talk into my own podcast. No, I'm not a narcissist, but borderline. But anyway, people do feel extremely comfortable coming up to me and just spilling their guts. It happens with strangers. It happens with family. It happens with friends. It happens with people I work with and wait on and all the things. Because I think part of it is that I open that pathway of communication by being very honest and straightforward with my own feelings and thoughts. I usually am very like, I don't know. I'm like struggling to find the word, like just not real, but I keep it real. I just kind of say what I feel. But I don't necessarily, like, people come to me like taxi cab confessionals style, like where they're just telling me stuff and I'm like, I'm sorry, what was your name? Like, we're just standing in a coffee line together and somehow you're telling me about, your childhood traumas. I think I would have been a great therapist. Not a great one, but a successful one, because people really feel at ease. But as a result, yeah, I don't like to be around a lot of people. And it gets worse the older I get, because I'm just like, oh my God, it's exhausting. But I'm not going to do anything for New Year's aside from reflect and get amped. Like I said, this kind of weird, darkest part of winter and like post the solstice going into, the new year, I get really, really, really motivated. It feels like the way when you like purge a bunch of stuff from your house where you're like, oh, I was just holding on to all this old shit that I'm never going to wear. My closet is really close to where I wouldn't really call it a closet. It's more like a dog cave. Like Ada, our dog, sleeps in the closet and it's mostly Jeremy's stuff. Like I see a baseball bat, some old shoes, a book bag, a terry cloth robe, some flannels. And then I see a few little shitty dresses that I know I'm never going to wear. I mean, never. Every time one of them is like, I'm looking at it, doesn't even work. Like the zipper is broken, but I won't throw it away because I always have this idea that like, oh, I throw away everything from my past, which is true. Like when I like kind of have a change of life or like something happen, not the change, not like going through menopause, though I feel like let's not even talk about that on this podcast. I'm too young for that. But when I move from a city or something, I'm not like precious with things. I won't carry a bunch of stuff with me. And later on in life, I do feel some remorse like, shit, why did I throw that away? Why didn't I save that? But you can't save everything. And when you do get rid of shit, it feels really good. So that's how I feel in January. And I feel like that around all things, F&B radio and just in general. There's some exciting stuff that I can't quite talk about yet, but I think I'll be able to talk about it soon. That's happening in the new year. So I'm a part of a couple of things that I've always wanted to be a part of, and I'm doing some things that I've never done before. And I know I'm being very cryptic about it, but it'll all come to fruition soon, and I'll be able to tell you all about it. But the point is even though it was a really hard season, it was a really hard holiday, the end of the year is always such a kick in the teeth. And I don't know, I'm trying to like, every year I'm like, God, how can I make it not so shitty right at the end of the year? And I think that's why people started doing celebrations, because they're like, let's just pretend that it's not the shittiest time of the year. Let's say it's the most wonderful. Maybe that's the biggest scam of all, is that somehow they were like, it's so bad that we just had to say it was wonderful and like put up a bunch of lights. But either way, I get really, really, really excited. And I just feel like renewed and like refreshed and ready to take on something new. So that's what this year is going to be about. I've been trying to like, as my last episode, sorry, I was off last week. Like I said, Papa Dale, I hope you went back and listened to his episode. Actually, he's doing better. He's not out of the woods, but he is a lot better. He's still in the hospital. He's still struggling. He had a lot of things going on. But he is looking like he's headed in the right direction. So thank you to everyone who messaged me. You guys are the best. Papa is the man. He's going to be fine, I think. It's just hard. It's a slow road to recovery when you're 87 and you have pneumonia and COVID and the flu. But he's doing well. So let's just focus on that. But yeah, I'm excited to kind of dial in what feels like the next evolution for F&B radio. And it's never a straight line. You're always kind of like going like, what, just trying things. That's how I do things anyway, because I don't really know another way. I just kind of just throw shit at the wall and see if it sticks. So yeah, once I can talk more about the events that are coming up in the next couple months in 2023, I will. But in the meantime, just know that there's some stuff behind the scenes that I'm really excited about. And I can't wait to share it with you guys. What is the most exciting thing that I ate in the past week? Weirdly, it's basically I put a frittata in a burrito. And I was like, this is brilliant. We always make a breakfast casserole, a make ahead breakfast casserole the night before Christmas. And in theory, they say it's a make ahead breakfast. Like all you got to do is pull it out and pop it in. But here's my thing. Does anything ever really get saved? Is it more efficient to make ahead? Because all I did was the night before, I just killed myself staying up late making a breakfast. I'm like, should have just gone to bed and gotten up and then made the damn casserole or just made eggs. I don't know. I think it's one of those scams where it's like layaway or buy now, pay later. It's like, look, if you don't have the money to pay now, you're not going to have it later. Trust me. Your financial situation isn't going to automatically change because you deferred it. You're still going to be too broke to buy that. That's kind of how I feel about the make ahead casserole. So I was like all down on the make ahead casserole. I made it anyway, angrily. That's the other thing. Like sometimes when I make stuff and I'm angry, or not even angry, but just like huffy, like, oh, get out the bulk sausage, whatever it is. I'm like, I can't slice this scallion right now. I've got presents to wrap. Just the stress of it all. I'm like, this isn't really saving me any time. This is just kind of piling it on when I don't have the energy to do it now. Anyway, it doesn't make sense to me, but I did it anyway because of blind, foolish tradition. Kind of like the rest of the holiday. Wow. Ooh, I'm in a delicate place. About the holidays. I'm just at that point where I'm like, what a scam. What an absolute scam. What a Grinch. Maybe I'll have like an evolution like the Grinch where someday, because I feel like I'm on track to be living in a cave, not talking to anyone and hating the holidays. Wow. Anyway, I don't know. Maybe he was right. Maybe he was maybe people misinterpret the real lesson in that story. We'll see. But I begrudgingly made this casserole and I had it in my fridge after it was baked. And I was like, what am I going to do with this? It's something I usually don't want to eat later. I don't like leftovers. You guys know that. And I essentially just was like, wait a second. I love breakfast burritos though. And it's kind of like a frittata or a baked egg or a fluffy scrambled egg or something. And it's already got scallion and mustard and green onion. And wait, that's the same as scallion. You know what I'm saying? It's already like a flavored soft scrambled egg bake. It's ready to go. It's properly seasoned and it's baked. So I just put it in a burrito, like a little tortilla, rolled it up, added a little extra cheese just for fun and some salsa. And then I was like, now this makes sense because it's not just a thing that you do one time. Like you can make this at the beginning of the week on a Sunday night and then have breakfast burritos for Monday and Tuesday. It just, I really enjoy that. I was pleasantly surprised by how much I love just having this really savory burrito that I didn't have to like assemble all the individual parts. So that was a fun thing that I made. But honestly, all of the rest of my plans got truly dashed. I didn't make shrimp cocktail. I didn't make gougères. I didn't make anything at all. I was just kind of like, like there's so much chaos going on with my family that I, not my immediate family, but my mom, my grandfather, the satellite members of my family. So yeah, I just didn't do any of that. And let me just tell you, that feels kind of good. I know sometimes that can feel, I always fear that it's like lonely or sad or like, I don't know, like a downer. But honestly, this time in this situation, it just felt right. I was like, fuck all that. Not doing that. So you gotta give yourself a break where you can. But I'm back, and then I did my favorite New Year's. Well, it's really my favorite weekly tradition, but sometimes it's bi-weekly or even monthly. it ebbs and flows. My goal is to always clean out the refrigerator every time I buy groceries, just to make sure that I'm like using things first and rotating things out and not wasting food. And it ebbs and flows. But I did go get a bunch of groceries and then cleaned out my fridge and organized everything. And I was like, oh man, I'm back. I felt excited about cooking again. I was like happy to get back to like feeding myself, because I felt like I had been just living out of a takeout box, which is usually my favorite thing. I love to get takeout. You guys know that. But everything in moderation. And it just got too much. I was like, I can't even get excited about Old Lee's right now. And that's saying a lot, because I love Old Lee's. But yeah, after, you can only have so much Old Lee's or any type of takeout before you just start to feel sluggish, kind of just like a barely human. And I don't know why that is, because it's not real food. It's not like when I say takeout, I mean, I'm eating chicken McNuggets, although I love those. But you know what I mean? Like if you eat McDonald's for every meal, you're going to feel bad. But it's not that. It's not like I'm eating, I don't know why. I think it's something to do with like the sadness of being like, I paid money that I couldn't really afford to just not have to do something. There's something about that, resigning yourself to that feels bad over and over. And then every now and then it feels good, So I don't know. I'm excited to like dial it in, rein it back in, figure out what it is that I'm doing in the new year, what not my goals or resolutions, because I really don't have a lot of those. I kind of work from a place of intuitiveness, like trying to make it feel natural. Like I don't want to like reinvent myself. That happens whether you want it to or not. You kind of evolve slowly over time, unless you're just one of those narrow-minded people that just literally thinks the same thing that you thought 30 years ago and hasn't asked a single question to anyone in 30 years. Then you might still have the same thought process. But I think over time, no matter what, you will evolve creatively, emotionally, in every way, in your career, in your life. But I try not to put like big goals on myself, just because sometimes with my personality type, that can just make me feel like I'm failing, because I have these big goals and I'll put them on myself. And then when they don't get met, it starts to really chip away at my confidence. And so I'm like, rather than that, like I try to focus in on what feels like, yeah, this is the direction I'm headed in. And then I just kind of do more of that. And then if the converse is true, like if it starts to feel bad or like something is a time suck or an energy drain, I start to kind of just gently move away from that. So whether it's right now, it's honestly content. And I talked about this in the last one, but I'm like, I don't feel connected in any way to making content on the internet in a like Instagram medium. And that's apparent because I'm not doing any of it. But I think that is not like necessarily a bad thing. I was talking about this with Jeremy and I'm like, I think it just means that my energy is best used in some other form. So there's been a lot of writing behind the scenes stuff that I'm working on. And I'm going to just kind of move more towards that. And of course, doing the podcast always, because the podcast is the best. It's my favorite thing. I never get tired of the podcast. And I'm so thankful for all of you that apparently you don't either. And that means so much to me. But yeah, I hope whatever you're working on in the new year, I hope it feels intuitive and like what you want to be doing, and kind of helping yourself find what it is that you're supposed to be doing. Because I think that's what a lot of people are asking themselves this time of year. And it's kind of it's futile to just try to guess what it is you're supposed to be doing. It needs to be more like through action, you'll find out what it is. You're never going to think your way out of it. You know what I mean? You're never going to solve a puzzle like that by thinking. You can put thought around it and you can be thoughtful with it, but you have to ultimately try something. You have to write something and put it out there and see what people think. You have to start a podcast. If that's what you're doing, you have to like make content in the food space or whatever space you're in. and see what people think. There's just no way you can solve that by simply being like, now I'm smart and I know people and I know this will work, so I'll just do this. I think a lot of people approach it that way, and it's just really, run your head into the wall doing that. So yeah, this year is going to be honestly about slowing down and just being way more knee jerk with the stuff that I say yes or no to. Yeah, not putting too much like strategy behind what it is you're doing, because I think you can strategize all you want, but if you're not actually good at doing the things that your strategy tells you to do, it's just going to be a real hard climb. And I don't think it's easy the way I'm doing it either. I just think it feels more natural to me. So that's what I'm doing. And I'm excited to see what that looks like, because when I look back on F&B radio since its iteration in 2016, I think it started at the end, May of 2016. How many years is that? 2017? 7 years. The podcast has been going almost closer to 10 years than it has been 5 years. There it is. Wow. I'm not going to be leaning into math this year, as you can tell. But the podcast is going into its 7th year in 2023. And that's so insane to me, and also so just inspiring, because I'm like, if you just keep doing something, and I said this at Creative Mornings when I gave my talk back in November, but whatever it is you're doing, it only goes nowhere if you stop doing it, period. I mean, I think that's a lot of the things that I hear from creatives, or people who are like trying to make their way in whatever industry it is, in the food industry and anything. And it's like that feeling and that thought comes into your head so often. Like, why am I doing this? Nobody cares. It doesn't matter. It's not, it's not going the way I wanted it to. And while those feelings can feel really real, and you could say like, this is going nowhere, why do I keep doing this? The answer is because it's only actually going to go nowhere if you stop doing it. So that's what I tell myself when I'm feeling like, what's the point, or like, why are we doing this? And it helps me get excited and like take the next step, because really that's all it is. Like, I think a lot of people, in retrospect, when I was looking at F&B radio over the years, I'm like, man, it's not only changed so much in terms of the podcast, but each year has kind of had a different focus, and not intentionally so. I'm not like, okay, guys, this year it's video. It's like they kind of just naturally emerge. You'll see this theme emerge, or like this year it's reels, or this year it's recipe content. Like, it doesn't really work like that for me, but I can look back and see what was kind of unintentionally the theme of that year. And it's really interesting to look at. And you can do this with your own life, not just, your business or your passion project or whatever it is. But yeah, I think that's the cool part about this time of year, like this weird in-between time between, Christmas or the end of Hanukkah or the end of December and the start of the year. It's like, what was last year's kind of unifying theme? And sometimes they're not pretty. Sometimes you're like, the unifying theme was half-assing it. And that's something to work on. But I think that whatever you're doing great. You're doing the best you can, and you're not quitting. And that's all anyone can ask. So as I look at this next year for F&B radio, I'm like, it's going to be way more three-dimensional. Meaning I feel like it's going to be a lot more. It's already like based on the calendar. It's stacking up to be more like in-person speaking engagements and things like that. And then also just writing and getting really, really elaborate and detailed with honing and like kind of harnessing those stories. So that's kind of my loose intention. I'm sure it'll totally be something else by the time we have the same podcast next year on December 30th, 2023. It'll be something totally different. And I'll be like, oh yeah, just kidding. None of that stuff happened. Life just doesn't let you really have much of a say. You can choose how you feel about it and what you do about it, but you definitely don't get to choose what happens in your life. And I'm noticing that. I'm noticing that the older you get, the more stuff feels like it's happening to you. So that's like a big part of what I want to change my mindset this year and make sure that I'm just kind of leaning into what's happening instead of feeling, like a victim in your own life. Be empowered by the fact that you get to choose how you feel about it, and you get to choose what you do with it, and you get to choose how you show up in that way. And that's my motivational December 30th speech. If you are celebrating New Year's, I hope you get a nice bottle of champagne or like something delicious. My favorite is always a wet martini and a raw oyster alone with Jeremy in my kitchen after the boys go to bed. That's like my ideal New Year's situation. But I hope whatever you do, this is the best year yet for you. I have hope that it will be, even though last year was really challenging in a lot of ways, like right up until the very end, like even in this moment now, it's very challenging. But I'm extremely hopeful for 2023, and I'm so thankful for all of you. And I can't wait to share some of the things that are happening right at the beginning of the year. So definitely stay tuned for that, because there's going to be some fun stuff, some fun collabs, some fun events, some fun projects that are finally coming to a close and we'll be able to talk about just a lot of stuff. So thank you, as always, for being here and for being such an amazing, supportive community in this wacky world of food and beverage. And it's, satellite industries. Cook yourself something nice. If I can give you any piece of advice, I'm like, spend a little bit of time making this very simple meal, and it'll change your whole headspace. I love you. I'll see you next week. Bye, bye, bye.